This is part 3 of part of a story told in For Your Own Good that discusses how a serial unaliver and SA-er was not like born bad, but turned the way that he was based on his specific trauma history, despite really extreme stories like this typically being labeled as a bad seed or something of that nature. If you click on this comment, it'll take you to part 2, and then on that one I have a comment that takes you to part 1 if you need to catch up. We're just going to jump right in where I left off. And this is the Jurgen himself sharing an anecdote. I can't remember ever being affectionate with my mother in a spontaneous way, ever putting my arm around her and trying to hug her. I can vaguely remember her doing that when I was lying in bed between my parents watching television in the evening, but that may have happened twice in 4 years, and I resisted it. My mother was never especially happy about that, but I always had a sort of horror about her. I don't know what to call it, perhaps an ironic twist of fate, or even sadder than that. When I dreamed about my mother when I was a little boy, either she was selling me or she was coming at me with a knife. Unfortunately, the latter really came true later on. It was in 1964 or 65. I think it was a Tuesday. At that time, my mother was in the shop only on Tuesdays and Thursdays. At noontime, the meat was removed so that the counters could be washed off. My mother washed one half and I the other. The knives, which were kept in a pail, were also washed off. I said I was finished, but she was having a bad day, so she said, "You're not finished by a long shot." "Yes, I am." I said, "Take a look." She said, "You take a look at the mirrors. You'll have to do them all over again." I said, "I won't do them over again because they're already nice and shiny." She was standing in the back by the mirror. I was standing 3 or 4 yards away from her. She bent over the pail. I thought to myself, what's going on? Then she took a nice long butcher knife out and she threw it at me, at about shoulder height. I don't remember whether it bounced off of a scale or what, but it landed on a shelf in any case. If I hadn't ducked at the last moment, she would have hit me with it. I just stood there, stiff as a board. I didn't even know where I was. It was so unreal somehow. That was something you simply couldn't believe. Then she came up to me, she spit in my face, and began yelling that I was a piece of shit. Then she yelled, "I'm going to call up Herr Bitter, the head of Essen Welfare Office, and have him come right over and get you so you can go back where you came from, because that's where you belong." I ran into the kitchen to Frau Aschke, who worked in the shop. She was washing the things from lunch. I stood next to the cupboard and I held on to it. I said, "She threw a knife at me." "You're crazy," she said. "You don't know what you're talking about." I ran downstairs to the toilet. I sat down and I cried like a baby. When I went back upstairs, my mother was running around in the kitchen and she had the telephone book open. She probably really was looking for Herr Bitter's number. For a long time she didn't speak to me. I guess she might have thought, "He's a bad fellow who lets someone throw a knife at him and simply jumps aside." Another anecdote. You should hear my father sometimes. He has pretty extraordinary pair of lungs. A regular drill sergeant's voice. It's awful. There can be different reasons for it. His wife or some little thing displeases him. Sometimes the shouting was something awful, but I'm sure he didn't think of it that way at all. He can't help it, but that's horrible for me as a kid. I remember a lot of things like that. He was always one for issuing military commands and blaming me for something. He simply can't help it. I've often said that. But he has a hell of a lot on his mind, and so we can't hold it against him. In the first trial, the lawyer said, "Herr Bartsch, what was it like in the school in Marienhausen? Your son is supposed to have been given so many beatings. Conditions were supposed to have been quite brutal there." My father answered in these very words, "Well, after all, he wasn't beaten to pass." That was a straightforward answer. As a rule, my parents were never available during the day. Of course, my mother rushed past me from time to time, like grease lightning, but it was so understandable that she had no time for a child. I hardly dared open my mouth because wherever I was in the way. And what's called patience is something my mother never had any of. I often got hit for the simple reason that I got in her way because I wanted to ask her something. I was never able to understand what was going on inside of her. I know how much she loved me, and she still loves me, but a child, I always thought, should be able to get a sense of that as well. Just one example, and this is by no means an isolated case. My mother thought absolutely nothing of it to put her arm around me and kiss me one minute, and the next minute, if she noticed that I had left my shoes on by mistake, she took a coat hanger from the closet and would hit me with it until it would break. Things like that happened often, and every time something inside of me would break too. I've never been able to forget those things or the way I was treated, and I never will be able to. I'm sorry, but I guess I can't help it. Some people would say I'm ungrateful. That's hardly the case, because all this is nothing more and nothing less than an impression that I have, an impression that's based on my experiences, and the truth is supposed to be better than pious lies. My parents never should have gotten married in the first place. If two people who are scarcely capable of showing their feelings start a family, in my opinion, it can only lead to some sort of trouble. All I would hear is, "Shut up, you're the youngest, you've got nothing to say anyway. You're just a child, don't speak until you're spoken to." I feel the saddest when I'm at home, where everything is so antiseptic you think you have to walk around on tiptoes. On Christmas Eve, everything is so clean. I go down by the living room, and there are lots of presents there for me. It's really fantastic, and at least on this evening, my mother somewhat controls her temper that otherwise blows hot and cold, so you may think maybe tonight you can forget my own wickedness for once. But somehow there's tension crackling in the air, so you'll know there'll be hell to pay. If we could at least sing a Christmas carol. My mother says, "Now go ahead and sing a Christmas carol," and I say, "Oh, go on, I can't, I'm much too big for that." But I think, a child unaliver singing Christmas carols? That's enough to drive you crazy. I unwrap my presents, and I act pleased. My mother unwraps her presents, the ones for me, and she really is pleased. In the meantime, supper is ready, chicken soup with the chicken in it, and Father comes home 2 hours after me. He's been working until now. He tosses some kind of household appliance at Mother, and she's so touched that she has tears in her eyes. He mutters something that sounds kind of like Merry Christmas. Then he sits down at the dining table. "Well, what is it? Are you coming or not?" The soup is eaten in silence. We don't even touch the chicken. Not a word is spoken the whole time. There's just the radio, playing softly, as it has been for hours. We've finished eating. Father straightens up and bellows at us. "Excellent! And what are we going to do now?" As loud as he can. It sounds really awful. "We're not going to do anything now." My mother screams and runs crying into the kitchen. I think, who is punishing me? Fate or the Lord? But I know immediately that can't be it, and I'm reminded of a scene that I saw on television once. "The same as last year, madame?" "The same as every year, James." I ask softly, "Don't you at least want to look at your presents?" No. He just sits there staring at the tablecloth with an empty gaze. It's not even 8 o'clock yet. There's nothing to keep me down here anymore, so I head up to my room. I pace up and down, and I seriously ask myself, are you going to jump out the window or not? Why am I living in hell? Why would I be better off unalive instead of going through something like this? Because I'm an unaliver? That can't be all there is to it, because today was no different from every other year. This day was always the worst, mostly, of course, in recent years when I was still at home. Then everything, but really everything, came together all at once on the day. My father, and of course my mother too, is one of those people who are convinced that the Yahtzees' way of doing their educating had a good side too. No doubt about it, they would say, and all the older people thought this way. Back then we still had discipline, we had order, they didn't get stupid ideas when they were harassed. I think most young people feel the way I do and would rather not look into their family history under the Third Reich, because every one of us is afraid something or other might come out of the process and we would rather not know about it. I'm out of time, so I'll do a part 4.